This is not about blame or pointing the fingers. This is about truth. So people know why one pushes away society and tries not to be in society maybe, or acts the way they do. My last videos were in a different tone of voice so people could see what happens when somebody's mentally tormented, aggravated assault, and verbally assaulted by family members, by landlords, and so on, or even union members if it wasn't my union or my uncle. I've been tormented by people like my stepfather, David Lai, who was my dad from the age of 7 till 1993, which he adopted my brother and I, and that's how I got the Chinese last name of Lai. And my old last name, Boehm, became my middle name as well. And I was at the age of 7, and they got divorced in 1993, if I remember correctly, in the Comox Valley, where he was a teacher. Physical abuse have I had? Yes. My dad used to hit me in the back of the head, David Lai, because I'd not be doing too well in school, such as slaps in the back of the head, called dummy and retard, and every name under the book for not being as smart as him, being an adult, and me being a child. He expected us to be, how you could say, as smart as a man or as strong as a 250-pound guy. And this is a slap in the back of the head, and it wasn't light. 10 times would make you have a headache and cry. And full force when you're a minor under the age of 12. They made us do stuff as if you want to earn something or have something, you can go to work under the age of 12. So what did we do? They gave us a paper route to do. Minus 50 weather, blistering hot suns in the summertime in Red Deer, Alberta. $120 a month for 3 years, split 2 ways. Approximately $4,500 was saved. Also had 1 summer of selling prescriptions or subscriptions for the newspaper with people. In the people, we went around to different cities around or townships around Red Deer, Alberta, and sold these subscriptions and made money. Age 13, we moved to the West Coast, where my mom stopped working and decided she just wanted to be a home mother rather than a nurse, where in Red Deer she made $36,000, if I understand, or $3,600, or yeah, $36,000 a year. And my dad was a chef at the hospital as well, making $40,000 to $60,000 a year, which is a pretty damn good wage if you combine them together, which husband and wife are supposed to pay equally and do everything equally, right? Because you combine 2 lives to become 1. Child slavery laws. Was it child slavery? I don't know. I do look at it this way because they took my brother and I our money, and we never got it back. And we never got anything in life. Ever. I couldn't have anything because every time I turned around, my little brother Shane Lai would wreck everything. My birth father, Ross Joseph Francis, well, never lived with him in my entire life. As far as I know, he never paid child support. Under American law and new Canadian law, they call them deadbeat dads that don't want to pay child support. Did he get remarried? Yes, he did. He got remarried when I was about 11, 12 years old to a lady named Rosemary. After he found out he had a child that was a year old by her. And his name is Blair Richard Bohm. In, I think, 1995, they moved back to New Zealand because she was homesick and needed to move back to New Zealand after her cancer research. She thinks she's a little more posh. Her mom's in the government, and she thinks she's like royalty or something like that, or nobility, by her British background or whatnot. No difference in the people who move here who are from British descent. Lived with my dad for 1 year. Back after 1995, I was in a car accident. They were kicking me off ICBC, so I lived at his house for a year because he asked me to come out to get to know him a little better and his family before they moved off to New Zealand, which I did. I lived at his house for a year, like I said, and I paid $250 a month to stay at their house. Then I moved out on my own and paid $425 in a basement suite at a lady's house and a man's house who were in the middle of a divorce. And I stayed out there for 2.5 years, did apprenticeship work where my uncle lived as well. He got me into the union and some jobs there. I had to go look around for other work. And worked as an apprentice plumber, pipe fitter, which lots of verbal abuse from people who can't handle having people work for them that don't know how the work is. Because, hey, how do you do something unless somebody shows you how to do it first, right? We're not all taught in our brains at birth how to do stuff. It's monkey see, monkey do world. And that's basically how everybody learns. Nobody learns and knows everything right out of their head from birth. If it did, wow, fuck. We'd all be doctors and lawyers, wouldn't we? For the last 12 years, you probably seen me walk around this valley if you've listened this far so far. I've been abused by social service, being threatened to kick on the street. I heard threats, they said, had me charged, had it thrown out of court. Now I've had landlords threaten me with threatening eyeballs like you've seen in there. Does the same thing to me. Sprays stuff in the air in the hallways that gives you migraines. Makes your arms go numb. People do it all over the valley too. Little cult in the valley. Ken Weinstein's mother works at job shops, sends you off on goofy things, people slandering you. It's not a good place to live. Unless you know somebody here already. High-paying jobs, there's no high-paying jobs in this Comox Valley. All low-end jobs. Rents are way too high. Mortgages are too high. We have people moving here from other countries, buying into our country, finding loopholes to bring their countrymen over to work for nothing. Same law, then they try to go by their laws and regulations of their country. Meanwhile, Canadians should be filling Canadian jobs first before we bring in migrant workers or anybody from another country. Hire and train Canadians first. That's what it should be. That's all I can say. I don't apologize to anybody because I've done nothing wrong. I only speak the truth of what I've gone through. Why? Because our government doesn't protect the people enough. We only have to pay somebody $7 an hour or $8 an hour or $10 an hour, whatever minimum wage dictates. So therefore, we only have to pay the military, the RCMP, or our government $7 an hour or whatever minimum wage is, if that's all they expect somebody on minimum wage to earn. They don't need $300,000 an hour to fucking sit around and yell at each other and bicker in House of Commons, because that's bullshit. Or drive around in a squad car arresting people because the rest of the country is starving because they're not looking after the people. If you aren't going to be equal and give equal benefits, and the benefit is social services, EI, and healthcare to all people without discrimination being the color, race, sex, or gender, or their mental ability in life, then you're committing a crime. It's called discrimination. We are all supposed to be equal. A minor is anything under the age of 19, age of majority. And anything under the age of 19, if your parents aren't looking after your necessity of life, food, clothing, housing, and entertainment of well-being, then they're not doing their parental job. And that's all your parental job is to do, is look after your children. It's your choice to have kids. They didn't choose to be born in the country or into the world. You chose to have sex, procreate, and bring them into the country. And you choose to look after them. Don't blame your kids for anything, because they learn from you. Or your cousins, or your uncles, or your nephews. If you're your uncle, if you're an uncle to somebody, they're learning from you too, just like a parent, because you're higher on the table. It's a sad world, but our government needs to do more for the people so we can all live a decent life without discrimination. Communism is good for one reason why. because we all have a job. We all work. Just like our society, it's a tiered communist system. Depending on your education, it depends on your wealth of how much you make per year and what kind of job you're going to have. Discrimination by a job, somebody else has to choose whether you work or not. You don't have a choice of what you do. They don't want to hire you, they don't want to hire you. You can build 1,000,000 tables or just one table. And if they don't want to buy it from you, you just wasted your time building it for somebody. So there's no point in having a business or getting a business license, which has to be given to you. You don't get it, it's not your equal right or your right to have it. Somebody says, yo, you can have a business license. The government says, here, you can have this or this. You don't have a choice just to walk in and buy it. They choose to give it to you. No difference in a firearms acquisition, a driver's test, access to a college or university. Somebody has to dictate whether, one, you had the right grades, two, and enough money to pay for your tuitions and your books and all that kind of stuff. We don't have a choice of what we do in this country or any country. Somebody else has to dictate on what you have and what you don't have. This is not a blame of anything. It's called common sense and bullshit slavery lifestyle that we all have to force to live into and pretend it doesn't exist. That's all I'm going to say right now. And thank you if you listened.